Robin Hood story is very much a story of ordinary people against authority. And Robin Hood is the nexus that allows authority to be challenged.
He's saying something about the ordinary person, the ordinary yeoman bowman, having capabilities that aren't well understood by toffs. Robin Hood is smarter and better at shooting and better at defending himself than the people who think they're very smart because they've got account books and because they're good with abacuses. And that, in a way, is the point of him. That's what he's for.
Stories about Robin were spread by word of mouth among ordinary people. And it was a time when they could do with a hero. The Black Death and other plagues had ravaged 14th century England. Civil war followed. Millions were killed or displaced. The stories of the defiant and clever Robin Hood offered rare victories for the common man. But he would not be theirs alone for long. In 1510, King Henry VIII himself played the outlaw at a court pageant. Even the high and mighty could not resist Robin's appeal. In the 16th century, England became a Protestant nation. As the country changed, so did the stories of Robin Hood. Soon it was not only the Sheriff of Nottingham he fought, but corrupt Catholic priests as well. Under Elizabeth I, however, authorities grew concerned. This legendary man of the people was becoming too popular. Robin Hood, they decided, was a threat to their power. Efforts were made to suppress the stories. If Robin Hood was to survive, he would have to change yet again. His savior was Elizabethan playwright Anthony Munday. He transformed the outlaw from a yeoman into the Earl of Huntingdon, a fallen member of the aristocracy. This changed the target of Robin Hood's rebellion. In Munday's telling, the outlaw's conflict was only with corrupt authority. Now, a member of the aristocracy himself and a loyal servant of the true king, Robin became a representative of legitimate authority. And every time he defied the rulers of his fictional world, he reinforced the social structures of the Elizabethan. The next great shift came in the 19th century.
The 19th century gets really keen on the medieval past. It's called medievalism. And this takes lots of different forms, like William Morris goes around trying to replicate medieval interiors and the look of medieval books, for example. You've got Tennyson writing poems about King Arthur, Idylls of the King and the Morte Arthur. And Robin Hood's sort of part of that. People like Walter Scott rewrite the legend to bring it into line with the 19th century's idea of what the Middle Ages were.
Robin becomes a literary figure, a popular figure. And once that happens, you get this romantic Robin Hood, who is very much loved by all. He's loved by women, he's very, very charming, he's loved by good men. He's a true monarchist, which is very important in the expanding English empire.
It was a time of urbanization, industry, and empire building. Its Robin Hood stories mingled nostalgia for a simpler medieval age with a muscular Victorian nationalism. The 19th century saw the popularity of the Robin Hood legend spread far beyond England, and in the 20th century he would reach Hollywood. Since his early appearances in silent film, there have been dozens of screen adventures for Robin Hood. These depictions vary decade by decade, but they always question pressing issues of the day. In the 1920s, it was American isolationism. In the 30s, the Depression and Roosevelt's New Deal. In the 1950s, Britain's post-war reconstruction was the unspoken backdrop. In the 1970s, its tired decline. The 90s saw a new, more international Robin Hood with allies of different races and creeds. And we continue year after year to revisit the story and recraft it for our own age. For the appeal of Robin Hood seems undimmed by time.
There's something immensely attractive about being an outlaw in connection with trees. I think it's just the idea of living in a world where you don't have to work, but where you have all kinds of important skills, and you're living in this kind of almost Edenic nature.
We like bad boys, and I think this is what the Robin Hood legend sort of attracts us to, in that he's a bad boy with a heart of gold. So there's something very, very attractive about him.
His identity, his enemies, and the questions he asks of us continue to evolve with every new screen adventure. Robin Hood is both a figure of comforting permanent tradition and a relentlessly contemporary rule breaker. This dual identity is at the heart of his endurance. It is through constant evolution that Robin Hood maintains his foothold in our imagination. After weeks of wandering, the exhausted Roswell came to a city. Behind walls high and true stood great houses of stone, and beyond them, in the heart of the city, the towers of a mighty fortress dazzled in the sun. Roswell marveled at its wide streets and busy markets, but the greatest wonder was still to come. It was in the palace yard he saw her. He was transfixed. She was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. Roswell summoned up his courage to speak with her. But before they had exchanged more than a few words, a harsh cry came from the palace. "Princess Lillian, come at once. Your father wishes to speak with you." Reluctantly, the princess obeyed. Roswell stared longingly after her. "She's not meant for the likes of us, lad," the passerby mocked. "She's to marry some fine prince, I hear." Sure enough, just days later, the prince promised to Lillian arrived at the castle. Roswell joined the crowds at the gate, but when he saw the prince, he was stunned. It was none other than the treacherous steward who had stolen his fortune and his princely name. He was the man dear Lillian was to wed. Sudden reversals in fortune, like those of poor Roswell, are difficult for individuals to bear. Whole societies can fare little better. Balancing people's competing demands is difficult at the best of times. A sudden shock can make it impossible. One such shock came in the 16th century. In 1517, German monk Martin Luther defied the teachings of the Catholic Church. He ignited a religious revolution. The Reformation had begun. Soon, Europe was divided as never before. Families, communities, and nations were split, Catholic and Protestant. Wars of religion scarred the continent, and the bloodiest of all was the 30 Years' War. With almost 8 million casualties, the conflict was one of the longest and most destructive in European history. It began in the Holy Roman Empire, a fragmented land of tiny kingdoms and principalities.
All of these little kingdoms were caught up in a stupendous war about whether Catholics or Protestants should succeed to one of these little kingdoms. But all of them ended up getting involved, and it started in 1618, and it just banged on and on and on.
This was the epoch of the war which proverbially laid waste to Germany. Germany was the theatre of war for all of Europe.
The pretty normal experience was for the other side to ride into your village and just kill everybody, and I really mean everybody. that kind of nightmare experience became quite commonplace and must have altered people's sense of the world.
Caught up in this conflict was the North Bavarian town of Bamberg. It was a town built at the meeting of two rivers, 40 miles downstream from Nuremberg. It had grown in the shadow of a mountain fortress, but at its heart was the church. A four-towered cathedral loomed over the rooftops, and Catholicism dominated everyday life.
Bamberg in the early 17th century was a typically South German, typically Bavarian place. It would have had a strongly established Roman Catholic culture.
Bamberg was a prince-archbishopric presided over by successive archbishops who strongly wanted to oppose the spread of Protestantism.
It defined itself over against the newly established and threatening Protestant culture just a few leagues up the road.
In 1623, Johann Georg von Dornheim became the city's prince-bishop. Von Dornheim was a Jesuit. He was utterly committed to the Catholic Church and obsessed with pushing back Protestantism.
The bishop was a rather extreme character, even by the standards of his day. He appears to have exploited his office as Prince Bishop of Bamberg to apply the most rigoristic form of witch hunting.
Witch hunts were not new in Bamberg. They had taken place under several of von Dornheim's predecessors. But von Dornheim took the practice to extremes. Not for nothing was he dubbed der Hexenbrenner, the witch burner. Hundreds were accused, put on trial, and executed. In 1627, von Dornheim ordered the construction of the Witch House. This special prison had 28 cells and torture chambers. It was here he secured his confessions.
There was quite lavish torture used to force a confession from witches. And we know this because one of the suspects actually smuggled a letter out to his daughter. It's incredibly sad, explaining what had been done to him, explaining why he'd had to name names and betray people, even though he knew what he was saying wasn't true. And it was the standard array of medieval tortures: thumbscrews, the boots, and the strappado, which mostly rely not only on pain, but on creating disfigurement and disability.
Neither age nor rank proved a defense against accusation. Among those executed were the mayor and his wife. Georg Hahn, a prominent doctor in the town, opposed the trials, but that only made him a target for the bishop.
Hahn, his wife, his son, and 2 daughters were all burned at the stake. Witches have featured in European mythology and folklore for thousands of years, but they were never confined to the safe world of the story. Many believed in sorcery and blamed it for misfortune in their everyday life.